Hey guys, another video for our Myths About Japan playlist. A couple of people contacted us the last couple of weeks asking about a particular story that they'd seen, asking for comment. So the reason we started the Myths About Japan playlist was to actually address the occasional myth directly, such as what we're doing in this video. However, generally it's just giving a bit of a heads up as to how these myths about Japan develop and how they get spread around. So, of course, there are a lot of genuinely odd things about Japan, and we have an Odd Stuff in Japan playlist that we show you on there, but unfortunately a lot of the odd stuff that's spread around is either exaggerated or total fabrication, as we've showed you before. Total nonsense that somebody's misunderstood from somewhere and perpetuated it. So this one is sort of falls into that category of a good example of how these things start and how they are spread. So what happened was, at a technology exhibition in Japan, a lady had developed basically some software, simple software really. All she really did is she used an off-the-shelf robot, and we've showed you sort of simple robots here before that are used basically to hold up usually a smart pad of some description or a touch screen of some description, as we've showed you before, outside restaurants for people to register, you know, if they're waiting for a table and how many people are waiting and that sort of thing. And most of the time those sort of robots could be replaced with a stick, because they're really just a novelty, really. They're not performing any real task except to hold up a touchpad of some description that people can register their need for a table on. And a lot of it's just like that, or just straight out a greeting, a simple robot that's just greeting people as they come through the door. That's just a motion sensor and a recording, basically. So a lot of it's very simple. And this lady took one of those robots and a very simple piece of software and combined them. And what she addressed was, she did it, it's sort of like a concept, you know, at motor shows you get concept vehicles where the car makers will come up with a concept vehicle that sort of uses new technology, experiments with new technology, experiments with design, and usually comes up with something fairly outrageous that's not designed, not meant for mass production. Usually a concept vehicle is a one-off, isn't it? It's just a bit of an experiment, and also gets a bit of attention to for the car maker from customers and so on as well, but usually not designed to be mass produced. And what this lady had done is sort of like that. So what she did was, a bit of background first, a lot of Japanese Buddhists believe that when a person dies, their soul hangs around for 49 days, and then after 49 days it moves on to the next life. And we've showed you on previous videos, there's a lot of ceremony goes on in that first 49 days. Lots and lots of chanting and Buddhist ritual and priests and lots and lots of stuff goes on in that first 49 days, including the family and friends. And so what she's done is the concept is that she takes a scan of a person's face, and she records them saying lots of things like, geez, this isn't too bad, and I quite like it here, and I'm really very happy, and lots of stuff like that. And then after the person dies, then they use that scan of their face to print their image onto a mask, and then they put the mask onto the face of the robot, and then they put the recordings of the person into the robot, and then they've got some sort of simple activation. It's a motion sensor or it's a touch sensor or something like that. And then there's a screen on the robot's chest, and it counts down the 49 days till the final hours and final minutes, and then the robot itself stops. But during that 49 days, if a friend or family member touches the robot or talks to the robot, it's just that simple recording is played back. So, you know, day one there'll be 49 recordings or more, and every day there's a different response. So, oh, I'm sad, yesterday I died, but it's okay because this place is nice. And the concept is, the idea is that it's supposed to make the grieving people feel better. So this was picked up. We saw it on mainstream Japanese TV just as a side thing. And interestingly, a lot of these things, when they're put on TV, the Japanese people's response, and the people in the studio and the people watching, tend to go, because they see this thing for what it is. You know, they don't see it as a practical thing that they want to use. They see it as what it is. It's just a bit of an odd thing that somebody's developed. And that's the end of it. They watch it on TV, that's the end of it, right? But unfortunately, the English-speaking media pick up on these things and run with it. So the story that's been repeated, or the video that's been shown now, again, it was done by a mainstream TV station, did a story on it, and they in English, it was an English-speaking mainstream television station. Now, we're not going to name the TV station, we're not going to name any of the people who repeated this story, because it's obvious that the reason that they run with these stories and sell them in the way that they do is just straight out to get attention, to get, you know, clicks, or to get views, or to get advertising revenue, whatever it is that's motivating them. You know, it's certainly not honesty, right? So the first English-speaking TV station that ran the story put the title on it, "Androids May Change the Way We Mourn," right? And it was true that when they interviewed her, she sort of suggested that it'd be good if these things could change the way people mourn. She was talking in Japanese, but she sort of suggested that, but that's because she developed it. So she thinks it's a wonderful idea. But it would be obvious to anybody who reported on it, anybody who saw the story, that it's not going to become mainstream. And the guy that wrote the title of that article, of that story, and the people that produced that story for TV, all of the people involved would know it's not going to become mainstream. It's no different. It's really no different, is it, than if somebody made a video before they died and said, okay, I've died now and I've gone to heaven and now I'm still really happy, don't worry about me, it's all okay. And people do often leave videos, don't they, for when they die, and with their will, or with their, I don't know, last thing that they want to say to their loved ones or something, you know, and people already do that, and they've been doing that since video cameras started getting sold to the general public, you know, 50 years ago, whenever that was. So there's nothing new, is there, in this? It's just the way it's been packaged and connected to this robot. And again, a lot of tech people would have jumped up when they saw that title, Android, because it's not really an android, it's a really simple piece of robotics. Right? Very simple piece of robotics. So it's not really high tech. It's just some really simple technology that's been combined together as an interesting idea. And it was an interesting idea. The lady that developed it, you know, it was an interesting idea that she had, and she demonstrated it to people. And it's not her fault that all these other people have run with it in this way, and they know. You know, that TV station would know that it's not going to become mainstream. It's not going to change the way we mourn, is it? It's not going to make any difference to the way we mourn, you know. And then what happened was, and this is why we heard about it again from our viewers, is that people had seen it on social media. There's all the English-speaking mainstream social media sort of news. They call themselves news organisations. Just basically embedded that video from that TV station and used the same title. Right, which is just straight out clickbait, isn't it? It's just straight out. It's deceptive. It's deceptive, isn't it? You know, and that's obviously the definition of clickbait. Everybody wants clicks. I mean, we'd like it if lots of people saw our videos as well. But the definition of clickbait is the deceptive part of it, isn't it? And that's, you know, you can see the difference, and that's why these guys do it. It works. You know, you look at the featured videos on YouTube, and quite often they contain stuff like this. And a lot of the videos about Japan that have had 1 million views or 2 million views contain elements of this deceptive sort of suggesting that this is mainstream. And the problem with this is, and this is why it's on the myths playlist, is this is how myths get started. You know, this is how myths get started, because you know what's going to happen. This is going to get picked up because it's getting the views and the clicks, because that's what it was designed for. It'll get picked up by the mainstream media, and it's only a matter of time then before you see it you know, it'll be that funny little news story at the end of your, you know, you'll be watching Fox News in the US, or you'll be watching, you know, BBC in the UK, or something in Australia, or something in Europe, and at the end of the news, at the end of the real news, then they show that funny little story. Just before we go, quick funny story from Japan. Look at the latest trend, and you watch the words. This is what happens too. The social media people and the mainstream media people use words like trend and boom, and you know, and suggest that it's become mainstream. And then what happens is it perpetuates itself then, and other media people see it and believe it. You know, they don't look into it to find out if it is a boom. They don't even think about it. They don't care. That's really the thing, isn't it? Because any logical person's going to think about this and think, it's not going to catch on. You know, there's no one in our lives in Japan who would have a thing like that at a funeral or at any of the services for the person that had died, or have it in their house. They'd be embarrassed by something like that. You know, and it certainly wouldn't make them feel better. Having that thing in their house, that definitely wouldn't make them feel better. You know, and that's what'll happen, is it'll get picked up. It'll be, you know, the latest trend from Japan. You know, the latest thing from Japan, and then it's that funny little story at the end of the news half hour, isn't it? Just before we go, here's another weird thing from Japan. Aren't the Japanese weird? Okay, and now time for the weather, right? So this is how it starts, and quite often this is what happens. We'll see it start, and we go, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. We'll see it on the mainstream media, and we go, oh yeah, here we go. And then sure enough, you know, it pops up and pops up and pops up. And sometimes 6 months later or a year later, people will be contacting us and saying, have you seen this? And yeah, we saw that a year ago when it first started, you know, and it just keeps going around the earth then. Any website that wants views, or any social media thing that wants views, or any mainstream media that wants views, they just regurgitate it. They keep it on file probably for that last 2 minutes of the news, just before we go, another quick silly thing from Japan. They've probably got a quick silly thing file that they keep all this stuff in. So anyway, when you see that one, guys, you know, the thinking people see right through stuff like this and go, hang on, that's not going to be mainstream. What's this about? You know, a recording of someone's voice saying, hey, the afterlife is really good. I quite like it. I quite like it here. You know, you could do that with a video camera, couldn't you? You know, might make a video for YouTube saying, I'm dead now, but the afterlife's really good. All my favourite people are here. Probably get clicks, wouldn't it? Anyway, we'll keep posting the unpopular, honest videos. We'll keep getting 1,000 views while these other guys are getting 3 million views, but there's something good about being honest about these things. It's refreshing, isn't it? Anyway, there it was. More videos coming soon.